So now that we had a telephone interruption, let's see if we can pick up and go back to where we were.
Well, with the interruption, I sort of forgot where I was, but I think I was just completing my bomb run on the April 2nd, 45 mission, where I had been recommended for the DFC for that flight. Anyway, after we dropped bombs away, I think this is about where we were. One of my jobs was to get on the intercom and have everybody check in and say they're okay. And when I didn't get an answer from the tail gunner, I had to get my oxygen tank on, go all the way from the front of the plane, crawl through the bomb bay and through the pilot's engineer's room, all the way back to the tail. When I got back there, I saw that the tail gunner had more or less received a direct hit in the chest, and I assumed that he was beyond help, and so I just went back and reported to the crew that he had been hit, and I probably didn't do what I was supposed to do, but never had the training in first aid or something. I did what I thought was right at the time, anyway.
Well, speaking of the oxygen mask in the plane, what were the conditions like? And you said you had to crawl through things and all. You know, we think of planes that we fly on today. What was it like inside one of those planes when you were up in the air?
Well, it's not so much what it was. There was no padding whatsoever. We're just bare metal frames. No, all those between you and the outside was a thin piece of aluminum fastened to the framework. And everybody had to wear a flying suit with a heated suit, and heated boots, and heated gloves, and of course you could go without it for temporarily, but if you're out too long, you got pretty cold. And we used to start off by wearing union suits, you know, long johns with the long sleeves, underwear, long legs, and then put their heating on over that, and then your flying suit over that. And
is that why you see pictures of the old flying hats or helmets that were all like sheep lined or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And lost my train of thought again. But that was just part of everyday flying. When you're flying at 30,000 feet and 60 degrees below zero, and no heat plane or no way to keep it in, you had to have those things, and that was just part of the job.
Now, well, the rest of the plane had just the metal up in the cone where you were. It was just glass, or? Well,
there was a plexiglass nose, which, you know, I could see out. And other than that, there were just a couple little, the navigator had a little window, maybe 12 by 12 inches wide, that he could look out of. And the pilots had their windshield. The radio operator had no window. The engineer, the only place he could see out is if he got into his turret, which was where he could fire two 50 millimeter cannons. It was like a glass dome on the top. You'd get up in there and look out. The waist gunners had open windows, just opens in the planes where if you wanted to, you could jump right out through them.
Oh, goodness.
Of course, then there was a ball turret, was glass, and the tail gunner just had a little glass over just enough where his head was so you can see around a little bit. There's nothing like a modern day plane.
Is there anything else about any of your other missions or flying back then during the war, or any specific memories you have as you finished or came home or anything like that?
Well, not so much as a mission. I can recall, you know, Stan and I were pretty close as we were roommates, and we went to London a few times, and spent a day or so there. And we went a couple other towns, and I used to go into Northampton every Saturday, or and went to a place called the Rendezvous where they had music and dancing, and that's where I really learned how to dance, because I wasn't too ashamed to step on anybody's toes with strangers. But anyway, we had a good time there. But I did around Christmas time of 44. I did get a week's R&R, which I spent at a place called Stansbridge Earls in the southern part of England, and I found out that that was the home of Lord Mountbatten at the time, and he had turned over to the Air Force for rest and recuperation. And while we were there, we played some softball, and we shot some skeet, and did other things, just to get something different than the routine, get us away from the flying all the time.
Wasn't there someplace along the way, I don't know if it was your dancing, that you made friends with a woman there in England that you again reconnected with many years later with one of the reunions, or was that
No, I met quite a few people when we used to go to town. I say people, young girls naturally. And we danced. But,
well, when was it that you met the woman named Sylvia?
Well, that was when we went back in 1980.
Oh, okay. I thought you had known her from the war days. I didn't realize you had just met her in 1980.
In 1980, when we went back, when I met her, we were going into some kind of building for like a little lunch or something, and she happened to be there standing in line, handing out something, and she just struck me as somebody that, how sometimes you look at a person and say, I like that person. And evidently I reacted the same way with her, and we got talking, and later on I wanted to go back to Northampton, where we used to go quite a few times, for my evenings out, and I contacted her and asked her if she'd, drive us, and then there was Mom and I and two other couples. We rented a van, and I talked to Sylvia and asked her if she would drive us, and she said yes, so she told me how to get to her house, so we drove there, and then she drove the van and all the way to Northampton. I got to see some of the places that were familiar. Of course, they didn't look the same, because when I was there, it was always dark at night. And I don't remember how we got around, but the truck took us from the base, would drop us off at the market square there, and then I think we could walk from there to where the dance hall was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I misunderstood when you had met her. I just knew, it was somebody that you met while you were in England one time.
And why it was we kept in touch, I don't know, but I know you're trying to remind me of the other people that I met when we were there in 1980. Mom and I were walking down the streets of
Shuffleston, was it?
Anyway, it's Hiram Ferris, and we were there for meet the mayors and stuff like that. And after that, we had a half hour or so to walk around, just look at the village. And Mary and I were walking down the street, and a fellow come across the other side and said hello to us, and we got talking. And he said, "Would you like to come to my house for a drink?" And we said yes. So he took us in and introduced his wife and showed us his garden in the back and all that. And we got his name and address, and so later on I got, kept in touch with her, with the two of them, and back in 1988, her husband had died, and she was there waiting at the bus to greet me when we got off in Hiram Ferris, and we had, lunch together again, and anyway.
Okay, yeah, so I knew there was some connection.
Her,
right.
And there was another couple of ladies that Mom and I had talked to, and we got their name and address. We corresponded with them for a couple times, but they more or less never kept in touch with them afterwards. But and I did keep in touch with Sylvie after she was good enough to, take the time to take us to Northampton.
Okay, thank you.